WXBR, you were listening to the Metro South Morning Show, PM in the AM. Peter Czymbor here with you on this Friday morning. In recent days, trending on Twitter was hashtag Find Ja Rule and hashtag Where's Ja Rule. Well, we know where he'll be, and we've found him. He'll be at the MGM Grand Foxwoods Theater tomorrow night for the second hip-hop reunion concert with Lil' Kim, Mobb Deep, and Fabulous, and we know where he is right now. He's joining us right here over the airwaves of AM 1460. We welcome Ja Rule to the program. Ja Rule.
Yo, what's going on?
Nothing much, Ja Rule. Lots going on in your world. You are out playing shows in support of your most recent album, Pain is Love 2. You like the feel you get on the road these days?
Oh, man, I love it, man. You know, it's always good to get out there and just touch the people, you know.
It must be particularly good performing in support of this album, Pain is Love 2, because it was released back in February. However, you weren't necessarily able to properly promote it upon its initial release as you were in prison. So it feels good to not only be out of jail, I'm sure, but to be able to push your product and see the people who are fans of yours once again.
You know, absolutely, man. It feels good to get out there, you know, just perform some of the new records, you know. Of course, with some of my older stuff, some of my hits and stuff, you know, it just feels good being out there on the road and getting out on that stage and touching the people. So it's always a good thing.
Did it make you feel good that despite the fact there wasn't much promotion behind the album, if any, and there was no major record label supporting the album, that it still debuted on the Billboard charts?
Yeah, I think, you know, I think it's a testament to good music. You know, and I think I have a really great fan base. You know, my fans are the best fans in the world. So it's exciting, you know, to be home and to be hitting the road and, like I said, performing some of the new records and doing some of my old stuff and just having fun with it.
What was it like readjusting to living in a civilian world after being in jail?
Oh, I adjusted really quick. I was shaking that whole system on the ride home on the highway. You know, it's a situation where you go inside, you try to, you know, live in the moment, and you're going through what you're going through, but you try to keep an open mind that you don't have that much time to do here, and not try to, you know, park your mind in that space and time where you're at. You know, I try to, you know, think outside of them walls and really just focus on what I got coming up after the fact when I leave this place and what my life is going to be beyond this. So, you know, it's just a mental process you got to go through.
Once again, we're chatting with Ja Rule here on WXBR, performing at Foxwoods at the MGM Grand Theater as part of the Hip Hop Reunion Concert 2 this Saturday night. Ja, your career has been a very successful career that, in my opinion, feel free to disagree with me, has had three distinct chapters. Let's talk about what I'll call Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 right now. Chapter 1, late 90s, you were the third, fourth man on the mic, making a lot of guest appearances on other artists' albums, getting your name out there. Then you released your debut album, and it was very successful, and you were a gangster rapper with a hard edge. Phase 2, in the early portion of the 2000s, I'm not sure if this was a conscious decision on your part, but you crossed over to a more mainstream sound, not necessarily your sound, but with whom you collaborated with. Ashanti you introduced to the world. You had a few hit singles with Jennifer Lopez. Is that fair to say that your career did have two distinct chapters from the late 90s to the early 2000s? There was a distinct divide in where your career was?
I think it's just all music. You know, people like to look at things and put a label on it or try to, you know, compare this and that. But for me, it's just all music. You know, it's a creative growth, you know, from my first album to my second album to my third album. You know, going into making my second album and my third album, you know, I was living a lot different from my first album, from being in the struggle and being on the streets and having to hustle for $1 and stuff like that. When I started making money and I started seeing the world and seeing that there's so much more out there besides the block that I thought was everything, you know, my music reflected that. And I think artists go through that a lot in their careers. And sometimes the fans are already too accepted and sometimes they're not because they get used to what you gave them on your first album and they get attached to that. And sometimes they're not ready to elevate and get into the mind state of where you're at now in life. So I think it's tougher on the fans than it is for the artists, but it's also tough on the artists because sometimes it doesn't allow us to grow, you know?
So you think that the success you had in the late 90s with your debut album affected your later albums because you just couldn't rap about the things you talked about in the early days with such validity because it wasn't your life anymore?
I mean, you can always rap about those things because, don't get me wrong, as much as my life changed, as much as it stayed the same. You know, it wasn't like I left the hood and left everybody behind. I still got all my homies that still live that way, even though, you know, I was trying to pull them up and pulling certain guys up with me and helping, you know, change their lives as well. You still have that background. You still have those people you associate with. So as much as it changes, it remains the same. And I think when you really get into my albums and listen to the records that's on the albums, you get both sides of it now versus just the one side that you may have gotten on Vinny Vitavici. You know, now when you listen to Rule 336 and Pain is Love, you got street records. You got, you know, records that are about me being successful, like Living It Up, and you know, records about relationships, which I was going through at the time with my wife. And, you know, you get all of that now versus just the struggle. And I think that is what artistry is about, being able to grow, being able to make records that encompass what you're going through at the moment in life, you know. And I think only the great artists do that. They're not afraid to take that step. They're not afraid to push the envelope and say, okay, this may not sit well with some of my fan base, but this is where I'm at right now in life, and this is what I want to present to the world as an artist. And I think a lot of artists are scared to do that, but the ones that are not are usually very, very successful.
You mentioned earlier that you think it's sometimes harder on the fans than it is on the artist to grow as an artist, for the fans to accept it. Well, it seemed from the transformation, if you will, from your debut album to your work in the early 2000s, the fans were willing to accept it because there was a 2-3 year period where you seemingly could not change the dial on your radio without hearing one of your songs or one of your many collaborations with different artists.
Yeah, well, you know, that also goes with gaining new fans. You know, my fan base from Vinny Vitavici to Rule 336, The Pain is Love, grew tremendously. So whereas the ghettos of America may have been in tune with Vinny Vitavici, once I dropped Rule 336 and Pain is Love, Middle America was also able to understand Ja Rule's plight and Ja Rule's pain and Ja Rule's struggles, you know, because those records touched them as well. And for me, that's a beautiful thing, to be able to bring, you know, different cultures of people together in one place, to see one artist, to party, to have a good time. And both sides of the fence understand what I'm going through and can feel my pain and my struggle and my triumphs. You know, I think that's a blessing.
Once again, we're chatting with Ja Rule here on WXBR. Ja, we mentioned at the top of the interview that you've been trending on Twitter and social media over the past few days. I want to ask you about another trend, if you will, that has been going about social media platforms lately, and you did vaguely allude to it on Twitter, of course, and 140 characters or less is not being true, but I want to give you the opportunity to diffute it once and for all. There has been an article that has been passed around social media websites on a website that no one had ever previously heard of that states that MTV has a TV special coming out that is going to be about you leaving your wife for a man you met in prison. Is there any validity to this at all, Ja Rule?
Oh, man, there's no validity to that, man. It's funny, though. It's actually very comical. You know, I laugh at, you know, some of these social media sites, some of these websites, you know, these parody sites that, you know, that's their hustle, you know, is to put out these crazy stories and, you know, to get people to come to their site and to get hits on their site. And, you know, I've never heard of this site. I don't think anybody's ever heard of this site until they put out this crazy story about me. You know, but now they're getting hits and they're getting, you know, people traffic to their site, and I guess that's what it's all about for them. You know, for me, it's funny, you know, until you have to defute it. You know, until you have to come out and say, you know, listen, people, since when do we get our information from Cream or whatever the site's name is? Since when do we go to this site to get our information as the solid, ironclad, media, or journalism? So it's funny, it's crazy that somebody would even go as far as to make something like that up and, create quotes that my wife has supposedly said and create a fake MTV show that's supposedly coming out sometime in the near future or sometime this month or whatever the case may be. But, me and my family, we're living happily right now. Me and my wife, we're having a good time with it. We love each other very much. And, I say that to say, go check out our new sitcom coming real soon, or actually reality show coming real soon. And it's actually about me and my family. So y'all get a little insight.
So not only are you and your wife still together, but strong and having your own reality show forthcoming. Yeah,
absolutely. So, there's always some crazy rumors going about. But, Will Smith, he's funny. He said, Rule, this, I guess you haven't made it till you've been called gay. So I guess I've finally made it. You know what I'm saying?
We're chatting with Ja Rule here on WXBR. I'm sure that the folks who came up with that article should be thankful that you are approaching this with humor and laughter here this morning, because if they saw you in the streets, they might want to walk the other way, or would you just kind of laugh it off and say, I'm not even worried about them?
I'm not even worried about them, man. I'm grown, man. Ja Rule 5 years ago, yeah, they would have a problem when they see me. Or I may have found where their offices is at and gave them a problem, but, Ja Rule right now is I'm happy in my life, and I'm happy in the space that I'm in, man. And I got a great family and a great career and a lot of great things, coming in the future, that I'm looking forward to. And in no way, shape, or form am I trying to mess that up by getting assault charges or any other type of charges or any other type of trouble. I just want to live my life and relax and have a good time and kick my feet up, man.
Did going to jail mellow you out to some degree, knowing all of the success that you've had in your life, not wanting to give that up again for steel bars?
Absolutely. I mean, you work so hard to get to a point in your life where you deem success or you deem successful. And then to have all of that stripped away from you in the blink of an eye is definitely a humbling experience. It's a learning experience. It's something that I definitely learned from. It's an experience I definitely learned from. And, I don't want to go through that ever again. So I'm going to definitely watch the things I do, watch the company I keep, and just, keep my head above water, man, keep my nose clean, as they say, and keep pushing forward and do what I'm doing for my family and my career, and just have a good time with it.
A few years back, the rapper T.I. made headlines when he was in jail when he attempted to have a sexual encounter with his wife during a conjugal visit. Is that something you ever attempted?
Nah. It's crazy because I did state time and fed time. And, in the States, Mom, hey, you guys, I'm doing an interview. Yeah, when I was in the States, and you on the visits, they allow you to touch, kiss a little bit, stuff like that. But in the Feds, you're not allowed to touch, you're not allowed to do anything. So I know what T.I. was going through when he was in the federal custody. It was a little more difficult to kind of just, give your wife a kiss or rub a leg, or, they're really watching all that stuff really close. So it's really tough. And I'm just happy that I didn't have much time to do, and now I'm home and everything's good.
That's reason in itself not to want to go back. Once again, we're chatting with Ja Rule here on WXBR. One of the big story arcs to your career in the mid-2000s was the feud you had with 50 Cent. You were already an established rapper. He was on the rise. He had just signed with Shady Aftermath Records, Eminem and Dr. Dre's record label, and you guys had a very public feud. Now, almost a decade later, is that feud still in existence, or has it subsided?
Nah, that's in the past. We've both grown past that, and I can say that with confidence. That we're both in very different spaces and places in our lives, and that's something that we've definitely buried and put behind.
So have you guys actually squashed the beef, or is it just one of those situations where I'll be me, you be you, and we won't get in each other's way?
Yeah, I think it's more or less that. You know, you be you, I'll be me, and we're not gonna get in each other's way. And you get your money, I'm getting my money. You do your thing, I'm doing my thing. And you know, good luck to you, good luck to you. That's just what it is. You know.
We talked earlier on about how the transition you made from your first album to your second, third, and fourth album, that you couldn't quite rap about everything you rapped about on your first album the whole way because it wasn't your entire life anymore. When 50 Cent had that feud with you and he started to criticize you, did you respond by going with a harder sound and going with more harsh content, you think, or do you think that's just the public's perception?
No, I think, you know, I made a album called Blood in My Eye, you know, which was originally set out to be a mixtape, and you know, Def Jam said the hell with that and made it an album. But you know, that's what we do as artists. You know, music for us is therapy, and for me to make that album and just get everything out of my system and what I wanted to say off my chest was very therapeutic for me. You know, I needed that at that time, and that's what I gave to my fans. That's what I gave to the public, and that's how I felt at the time. Did I, you know that my entire fan base wouldn't be as receptive to this album as previous albums? Of course I did. Did I care? Of course not. You know, that's what artists do. You know, it's kind of like, you know, when people say, well, why did Kanye make this dark album now? Because that's what he was feeling creatively. You know, that's what good artists do. We get in a mood, in a zone, and we go with what we feel creatively, and we create in hopes that people see our vision and get what we're going through at that moment. You know, it's crazy because, you know, everybody's not going to see your vision because everybody doesn't have vision. You know, everybody has eyes, but everybody doesn't have a vision. So sometimes people don't get what you know, they don't see what you see. They're not getting what you're going through at the moment, and they don't understand it. And then sometimes people get it and they grasp it, and it's the biggest thing. It can go either way, you know, with artistry and creativity. You know, I know when I look at some Basquiat paintings, I don't get it sometimes. But I can enjoy the beauty of the art. You know, I can enjoy the colors and enjoy the, you know, what it looks like on the surface and kind of interpret it in my own way. But I may not understand fully what he was going through when he created it. And I think with music, people go through that same thing. You know, they enjoy the music, but they may not understand the full message of what you're going through at that moment. You know, and that's why, you know, I really dig what Beyonce just did with her album, because I think that's what music is missing. You know, artists create projects to be listened to on a whole, as an album, as a, you know, as a masterpiece, as a piece, not in pieces. You know, when I create albums, I don't create them so you can listen to 30 seconds of a record on iTunes and decipher if you like the record or not. I make the album as one whole piece so you can listen to it from front to back and understand what this whole piece is about, not just song to song or 30 seconds of a song and trying to decipher if you like it or not just by listening to that little piece of a song. So, you know, I'm all for music going back to that, going back to where we, you know, sell a whole album to our fans versus single to single, you know.
You mentioned some very interesting points, and I want to go back to those in just a few moments. But I want to talk about the 50 Cent beef just a little bit more. I'm sure you remember the details a lot more vividly than I do because you were part of it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but was there ever any insinuation on his part that the songs you were making were a little too soft and you were vying for more commercial appeal than street appeal? Is that something that is just inside my head that's not true, or is that, in fact, true? Did he say that?
I don't know. I really don't care. You know, when you look at his body of work, what do you see?
Well, the reason why I was asking was because he released 21 Questions, which is probably the worst hip-hop love song of all time.
Well, that's in your opinion, you know what I mean, and probably mine too, but.
And that's not to discredit any of his other work. I'm just saying that particular song.
No, it's just, it's what people go through in life. You think life is one way until you really get into it deeply, and then you start to figure out, okay, it's not all one way. It's not all black and white. There's a lot of colors mixed in here that I need to explore, that I need to understand this part, and this part, and this part, whereas you only thought it was about this. And, I think as he got more into the industry, that was what he started to see, is what I already knew, that there's more to life, there's more to this than that, so it is what it is,
Once again, we're chatting with Ja Rule here on WXBR. We talked about the first two phases of your career as I define them. Let's talk about phase three, the current phase. And you brought up some very interesting points about the way the music industry is presently. Kids nowadays are not going to record stores and buying an album, getting the CD, looking through the liner notes and things of that nature, and listening to a CD from beginning to end. They're buying singles off iTunes. There's no artwork or liner notes or anything of that nature. It's just simply an MP3 file. It seemed from the comments you made that you don't necessarily like where the music industry is at right now and perhaps where it's going.
I'm not 100% mad at it, but from an artist standpoint, when I know I enjoy those albums like, The Chronic, Doggy Style, Illmatic, 36 Chambers. I enjoy these type of albums, Life After Death, Ready to Die, I enjoy these albums because when you listen to them from front to back, you understand the whole story. You hear the skits that take you from one record to the next record. That's what albums is. That's what it's about. That's what our artistry is about. Pink Floyd, The Wall. These type of albums, when you listen to them, they're meant to be listened to in a whole, not in pieces. And now that the music business is going, the way that iTunes has made the music business, I should say, is giving the fans a chance to decipher the music in 30 seconds or less. And I think that's wrong, which in turn makes the artist not make music the same way. Because now an artist is thinking, okay, I'll make this hot single. I'll make a hot single versus I'll make a hot album. And I just think there's something wrong there. I'm from a different era, and I come from that era when we made albums and not singles. I enjoy making albums, putting it together, the skits with the songs, and it leads into this, and this song leads into the next song, and it just feels good. It tells a story. If you listen to my whole discography, you wouldn't have to interview me, because you can hear from album to album what I was going through that time period of my life. And for me, that's what artistry is about. That's what making music is about. That's what making records is about. That's what making good albums is about. That's what, being in this business is about for me.
Well, I would still want to interview you, even if I did listen to your entire discography. Just to let you know. We're chatting with Ja Rule here on WXBR. Ja, 2013 is almost in the books. We look forward to 2014. What is immediately on the horizon for you and your career?
Well, I'm working on my new project. I'm not in a rush. I'm taking my time with it. I want it to be a great album. I want it to be better than anything that I've ever done. So I'm going to take my time with it and do it right. And, you know, besides that, I'm doing a lot of film and TV stuff right now. You know, I'm producing some shows, and you know, I'm like I said, I'm about to do, you know, my reality show with my family, and you know, I got some other film projects that I'm working on that I'm about to start shooting some new films and stuff. So, you know, I'm just really enjoying that side of things too. You know, doing my film and TV stuff. I'm really enjoying doing that right now as well.
Where and when can we see that reality show about you and your family?
Haha. It's coming to one of your favorite stations real soon. We start shooting the second week of January. And I don't want to give it away right now because I'm holding it, kind of, you know, and I'm going to make an announcement and do it properly the way it should be done, not just throw it out there on every interview that I'm doing. You know, everything is about the setup, so I'm gonna set it up properly and make sure it's put out to the public properly. But you know, I want to give you just enough to keep you interested, and then, you know, blast off with it.
Well, we hope that when you can announce it, you do come back here to announce it. And we hope that when you're in Boston, you stop on by sometime. We're just south of Boston, Brockton. We'd love to have you in studio.
Absolutely, man. I love the Bean, man. I don't like the Boston Red Sox. You know, I'm a Yankee fan. I'm from New York, but I do love the Bean, man. I love Boston.
Well, Red Sox fans have mellowed out quite a bit since the 3 World Series in the past decades.
Yeah. You guys are good right now. You're happy.
That's Ja Rule joining us here on WXBR. He'll be at Foxwoods at the MGM Grand Theater tomorrow night. Ja Rule, any final words for our listeners before I let you go?
Man, just come on out and enjoy a good show tomorrow, man. We got a great lineup, man. That's when hip-hop was really, really hip-hop. So come on out and have some fun with it.
You're listening to the Metro South Morning Show, PM in the AM. We'll step aside for a quick news update courtesy of Mike Pava. Stick with us.